Hello, this is Draw Latina, Doctora Latina, and I'm making my very first YouTube film today. And I've never done this before. On the true crime channels and the true crime YouTube community, I have appeared many times on different creators' sort of guest profiles and given my opinion on things, but I've decided that I would like to launch my own small channel with certain goals that have to do with wellness, with understanding more about what leads each of us to a place of healing, and also understanding what leads people to perhaps commit a crime and what are the risk factors that lead a person to having an increased risk for committing a crime. Now, I'm a practicing physician of more than 30 years in family practice, family medicine, which is really, I used to deliver babies. I take care of pediatric children from day one of life, adolescents, adults, family planning, geriatrics, small procedures in the hospital, and also in the office. And I also have a very big interest in psychology, psychiatry, and really multicultural issues. I have spent about 20 years doing a lot of outpatient psychiatry, and I studied psychology in college. So I try in my professional life as well as my personal life to integrate what I call the bio, psycho, social, and spiritual model of medicine and life. Today this should just be a brief little sort of intro, and then maybe once a week I'll come back and I'll have another topic, or I will read comments where people might be able to pose a question, and hopefully I'll be able to answer your question. As many of you know, I speak several languages, obviously English, and I speak Italian, Spanish, and French. But I've worked most of my career with the Spanish-speaking immigrant community. I brought my children up bilingual English, Spanish in the home. And so I will be sort of using a touchstone, some expressions in Spanish, maybe Italian, and also talk about a couple of authors whom I have considered sort of mentors or role models. And hopefully each of you will learn something from these little videos that I'm doing on my channel. So here we go. In Spanish, we say, adelante con valentía. It means let's go forward with courage. And my dad, who spoke Italian, used to say, avanti con coraggio, which means the same thing. Adelante con valentía. Let's go forward with courage. And I think as we, especially in the true crime community, delve into areas that are very disturbing, look at behaviors that are deviant, it can be very unsettling for us. And so as a sort of touch point, I would encourage all of us to try to support one another and not tear each other down, and try to adelante con valentía, go forward with courage as you begin to delve into some of the topics of the true crime community and also of what I am going to present. I want to briefly touch on the Summer Wells case, and I'm going to take sort of a 20,000 foot airplane view of the case rather than getting into the weeds today. I think for me, it is, as a physician and as sort of a cerebral person, it is easier when I get not confused, but let's say muddled in my thinking about what's going on with the case. I try to step back and I try to look at what are the factors that might be at play in a person's, let's say, life, an individual's life, a family's life, professionally, my life, or when we're discussing true crime or the Summer Wells case, in the lives of the folks surrounding Little Summer. I know this has been spoken of here and there, but having spent a good portion of my young adulthood in the Deep South and having had the opportunity to work and live amongst people very similar to the community of Kingsport, Tennessee, I really feel or believe that I understand some of the factors that are at play here. And I kind of want to just sort of review the fact that, as many of us have said, the Summer Wells case is multi-layered, multifactorial. And from the 20,000-foot view, looking at the sort of Deep South and specifically at East Tennessee, Northeast Tennessee, historically that was an area in Appalachia where there was a lot of coal mining, some industry in the early 20th century. And as the Industrial Revolution proceeded and we became much more, let's say much less agrarian, less farm life, and coal sort of fell out of favor, that area of Appalachia became what I call sort of an extension of what we call in the Northeast the Rust Belt, where manufacturing and we call it the Rust Belt because all of the metals that were being used to create American-made items sort of oxidized and rusted. So while Northeast Tennessee is not part of the Rust Belt, it is a very important area historically because it is a victim of profound socioeconomic depression. And it sort of has a unique, what I call post-industrial, post-coal economic depression, high unemployment, historically poor education in the public school systems. And because of that, high unemployment, economic depression, maybe not the best of education, those factors have led to really an epidemic in that area of the South, in the Appalachia, of drug addiction, alcohol addiction, of course, the unemployment. And from that comes often and sadly poor parenting, can lead to things like negligence in terms of taking care of one's children. Often, and I'm going to speak to this more in another video, often folks that cannot access health care or find that there are barriers to obtaining health care for their children, barriers to obtaining adequate dental care. And so you begin to see sort of a snowball effect. And that is what I've seen in the Summer Wells case, is you have a constellation of socioeconomic and familial factors which set Little Summer up for, in some ways, despair and risk for not thriving, and now disappeared. In addition, with the Summer Wells case, you have what I deem a multi-generational illness, really, of domestic violence, what we in medicine now term or interpersonal violence. It doesn't even have to be interpartner violence. It could be that you're living with a group of friends and one friend can be abusive towards another friend in the home. So the word domestic violence has really morphed in the past decade into something called interpersonal violence. And so I would really urge you all to think about, as I'm talking, what of the factors that I'm speaking of here might be affecting your relationships or your lives. And again, domestic violence does not have to mean family. It can mean friend, interpersonal. So in the case of the Wells family, you really do have a multi-generational addiction, a multi-generational history of what I'm going to call SA, because of wanting to be discreet, we'll just call it SA. Also, multi-generational child abuse, alcohol addiction, and the effects prenatally, before birth, potentially, of alcohol and other illicit substances. And what are those effects on the mother, grandmother, child, or children? That's a whole other piece that really needs to be looked at. So in this case of the disappeared child, we're not just looking at a nuclear family of 5 or 6 plus grandma. We're really looking at that nuclear family in this moment of 2021, 22, extending back several generations and the effects of illness, substance, behaviors from several generations back on both sides of the family. And then again, you're looking at the constellation of the socioeconomic issues that I've already spoken about. Now, in addition to all of that, we have the complexities of neighborhood, strangers, social media folks inserting themselves into the case, either in vivo, like right on that property, or on the phone, or on the internet, or simply from afar, weighing into the issues on this case. Now, one thing I also wanted to mention is with poverty comes both local and state funded poverty. So in the case we're talking about, the Summer Wells case, we well know that there's tremendous underfunding of law enforcement, perhaps even at the level of the state TBI. And so that also impacts on how the investigation unfolds. I hope you guys aren't confused yet. I know I'm presenting stuff you already know, but I'm trying to summarize it all so that we can sort of wrap our arms around how very dense and complex this case is.